Hello.
Hello. Hey, how's it going?
I can't hear you.
Okay. Let's see. Uh, can you hear me now? On,
No, still can't hear anything.
uh, I want to.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. All right. If you can give me one moment, so I can stabilize my phone,
No worries.
and then. Oh, yeah.
All good?
I think we are. I'm just trying to get my phone to where it won't move. um, on this particular platform. I got it on. I'm going to back away from the phone just to see will it stay.
All right.
Okay. So I think I'm okay with it like this. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for your patience.
No problem.
So I've been trying to catch up yesterday, and my son stayed home and kind of messed me up with trying to get all my stuff together. But I sent some questions. They're simple questions. I emailed them. I didn't know if you wanted to look at them just for 1 second, but usually how this process works is I ask a few simple questions, and like how we start out, I usually introduce you. Uh, Now I'd say hello to all my listeners, and then we kind of jump into a dialogue, and then I ask a series of questions, and feel free to talk as long as you want to. I got to sit for like an hour and a half, and you don't take that long. And then afterwards, I just kind of do the farewell, and that's it. And usually, also afterwards, I'm going to send you a form, and it's just a release form saying that you're comfortable with the interview and you give permission for me to put it on our social media platforms.
Okay.
I create a folder with a photo of your choice, and I customize it and let you see it before we post it and promote it for about a week, and then we do the video like the following week.
That sounds great.
So that's how that goes. Before we kind of jump into the interview, was there anything you wanted to ask me before we jumped into it?
No, I'm I'm an open book. So.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm kind of excited because one of my colleagues here at Community Heroes actually brought you to my attention, and so I was just reading some of your accomplishments and things. So this is kind of brand new for me. Also, this interview, so I'm definitely excited about it. So one last thing, I want to make sure when I introduce you, I say your name properly. So it's Sylvia Longmire.
Longmire.
Longmire. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to jump in and kind of get started.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to another interview with Community Heroes, and as always, we're focusing on the special needs population, and we are striving for ultimately a community society of recognition of all inclusiveness. And with that being said, to that being said, I have a wonderful guest today, Miss Sylvia Longmire. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, so like I said, this for me is going to be a new learning experience. So, we normally just kind of start out by asking our guests, just kind of tell us a little bit about their background for where they're from and their town.
Sure. I currently live in Sanford, Florida, just north of Orlando. I was born and raised in South Florida. Yeah, just a native Floridian, 47 years old, single mom.
Okay. Yeah. I recently went to Florida in November for the first, well, not my first time, but first long extended time. I went to Tampa and I flew for the first time, and the weather was great. It was like the low when I was there was like 58, but the rest of the days were like 74, 75.
It's 80 degrees right now.
Yeah. So I'm kind of missing, like, man, I wish I was back there.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is, can you kind of talk to our listeners a little bit about your diagnosis?
Sure. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in January of 2005 while I was on active duty in the Air Force. At the time, I had relapsing remitting MS, which means that the symptoms kind of come and go. And then after several years, I kind of moved into the secondary progressive phase. So that's where I'm at right now. And it's been, 16 years.
Okay. Can you kind of just tell us about your military background experience?
Sure. I went through college ROTC, Air Force ROTC, on a full scholarship, and I was commissioned as a second lieutenant at age 22. And for 8.5 years, my job was a special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, which is basically like the FBI of the Air Force. So we investigate felony level crimes committed against or by Air Force personnel. I worked mostly in the fields of counterintelligence and counterterrorism, with one assignment working in counterespionage.
Oh man, that sounds kind of exciting. Like, it's almost like CIA TV type stuff. Or at least that's what it sounds like to me. So you kind of jumped into a little bit about my next question. I often ask our listeners, can they talk to us a little bit about their educational background? I know you say you started out with the ROTC and you mentioned about some more schooling. If you want to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Sure. I started out at University of Miami with a mechanical engineering major in engineering, and I didn't agree very well. So I transferred to Florida International University, got my bachelor's degree in a BBA in marketing. And then I went to graduate school while I was on active duty through a special Air Force program called the Foreign Area Studies Program. So I did that at University of South Florida in Tampa and got my master's degree in Latin American and Caribbean studies.
Okay. Well, so I know you said after a while with your multiple sclerosis, it kind of progressed over time. And from my readings, just about your background and everything, it kind of more pushed you into advocacy of the travel. I know it mentioned that it said you have done a lot of traveling. I think on one website I read it actually mentioned Dubai at one point. I think it mentioned. So can you just kind of talk to us a little bit about your advocacy, your transition into being an advocate?
Of course. I started, I'm a fighter. That's, I guess, the military in me. But very shortly after my diagnosis, even while I was still on active duty, I started working and volunteering to raise money for the National MS Society. So started doing the MS walks. My friends and family were doing the bike MS. So I started raising money for research, for a cure and for support programs right after I was diagnosed and found out what multiple sclerosis was all about. After, and I've always been a traveler since I was very little. But after I got divorced in 2015 and I was living on my own, I decided to start using travel and going back to travel as a way to kind of heal and start a new life and kind of gain some perspective. However, now I'm using a wheelchair full time, which I've been doing for about 7 years now. And I had to figure out how to travel as a wheelchair user. And that really opened my eyes to the difficulties for people with disabilities and certainly people who are more physically disabled than I am. I can't walk, but I live alone, I travel alone. There are a lot of people who can't and have even more difficulty than I do. And wanting to make things easier for people like me to travel, it just seemed like the next mission that I was destined to be on. And the advocacy just comes naturally to me to fight for people and to spread the word and do what I can to be the face of advocacy for accessible travel. So it was a very easy transition to go from traveling to kind of trying to make it easier for other people in wheelchairs or other people with mobility issues.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned travel, because as I just mentioned before, just me traveling for the first time last month. I got a chance to experience firsthand, like you just said, some of the extra hurdles that you had to go through when you have a wheelchair. And I just recently did an interview with an organization called All Wheels Up, who are actually fighting for actual proper placement and restraints for airplanes. And hopefully the listeners will go back and look at that video when we post that one also. But just from an experience, just the transportation of the chair to putting it in the cargo to some of the stories of wheelchair damage, it's those extra steps does make it frustrating. And I don't know if you how your experience was. Would you mind telling us about maybe one of your first experiences with travel whenever you started using your wheelchair permanently?
Sure. I used a 3-wheel scooter for many years before I started using the 4-wheel power wheelchair that I use now for travel. So I'm lucky in that I haven't experienced much damage to my chairs just because of the way that they're built. I don't really have any protruding wires or protruding pieces that can be easily snapped off, but I certainly have had plenty of cosmetic damage and a few plastic snaps here and there, and certainly a lot of scratches. So I've been very fortunate. But having the numerous friends and acquaintances that I do in wheelchairs, I'm constantly hearing horror stories about $35,000 custom wheelchairs that have been damaged beyond repair, stuff flying off and getting snapped off, and it's really, really frustrating. I have flown at least over 100 times, 150 times. I can't even keep track of how much I've flown as a wheelchair user over the last 6 years. So I've been very fortunate, but I've had some very close calls and I've had some fights with the airline people to get to enforce my rights under the Air Carrier Access Act. I've had airlines threaten to call the police twice to get me off the plane because I refused to get out of my plane seat until my chair was brought to the door of the plane in compliance with the ACAA. For the record, the cops never came and I always got my chair back. But most of us don't really know what our rights are under the Air Carrier Access Act. So we just kind of go with the flow. So that's another part of my mission, is spreading the word and to know your rights and know how to stand up for them, and things get done.
Yeah. So that I guess that would be a good point for me to transition. Is there any kind of website or maybe organization or anything you would like to mention to where you are using right now as a platform to kind of educate individuals?
Sure. I've had my travel blog for over 5 years. It's called Spin, like spinning around, spintheglobe.net. And there's tons of information on there on accessible travel, from destinations to packing to reviews of cruises to airlines, the best airlines to fly on, the best places to go, anything and everything accessible travel related. You can find it on my blog website, spintheglobe.net.
Spintheglobe.net. Oh, okay. Yes. So now I want to say also, I remember saying that you had held a title of almost like a beauty pageant
Yeah,
title.
Ms. Wheelchair USA 2016.
Yeah. So would you like to kind of talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I guess around 2015, yeah, late 2015, I started a nonprofit called the Pre-Jax Foundation, where we raise money and provide college scholarships for high school students, exceptional students who either have MS themselves or have a parent with MS. And I was looking for a way to kind of spread the word about my foundation and just kind of the cause in general. So I found the Ms. Wheelchair USA pageant, and it just, the timing worked out where I could apply to be considered. And I was selected as Ms. Wheelchair Southeastern USA, and went up to, in the summer of 2016, went up to Ohio for the pageant. And I met the most amazing women that I've ever met. Now I was new to using a wheelchair full time. I had never even met another wheelchair user, let alone so many women in wheelchairs, so many powerful women. And the whole week was just a lot of bonding and strengthening and getting to know each other and lifting each other up. And it was just a powerful, powerful experience. You know, maybe a little bit to do with beauty. I mean, we wore gowns and had our makeup done and our hair done, and everybody looked gorgeous. But it was more than that. It was about our platform and talking about what we're passionate about, what we advocate for, and just coming together as a community of women in wheelchairs who are, you know, not only doing our best and surviving, but thriving.
Yeah. And yeah, mention something that I always mention to just the guys I mentor, and also just people in general. Like I said, it's so important that events like that and other events that show individuals that may have barriers but have overcome them, and like you just said, are very strong, very determined, have excellent leadership qualities. These individuals need to be highlighted because it's important for the younger generation to see. Because like you just said, I remember myself coming up, I didn't see many individuals permanently confined to a wheelchair. So, I wasn't sure if it was possible to work, establish a family, have a travel life, to be a business owner and be permanently confined to a wheelchair. And I know now, somebody said, well, that sounds crazy. But if you don't see it, it becomes your reality, So I wish that events like that would get the recognition of maybe some kind of broadcasting, if not national, maybe at least on a whole coast, the East Coast would show it or something. That would be excellent.
Yeah, the way that they did it for my year and subsequent years is they do it on a streaming platform. They do it on Facebook Live, so that makes it a little bit easier for folks to see it.
Yeah, and that's excellent. So my far as milestones, are there any milestones that you would like to just discuss with us that you have just say I would love to do this or accomplish this as an advocate that you have achieved so far?
Sure. I'm currently in the process of editing a documentary that I directed and that I'm producing with a partner. And that is a big milestone for me in my journey for advocacy, because I started with just writing for the blog, and now I'm trying to be more in the, I've been in the media for a long time as an expert on the drug war in Mexico and border security. So I've been on TV for years, but this is different. This is as an actor with a disability in a wheelchair. So I'm trying to increase the representation of people with disabilities in Hollywood and in the media. So the documentary is about wheelchair users and why most of us have dreams at night that we can walk and nobody knows why. So not only am I behind the camera, I'm in front of the camera for a little bit, and I'm involving other wheelchair users in this documentary. So getting that edited, getting it moving forward, and hopefully getting it picked up by Netflix. That will be a big milestone for me, and hopefully getting at some point through auditions and the whole process, getting my first acting part in either a commercial or TV show or whatever that might be as a wheelchair user. That's another big milestone for me that I'm hoping to work on over the next couple of years. So that's hopefully what's in my future.
Okay. And you kind of answered, I was wondering, as you were talking about, I wonder if it's going to be on Netflix. So I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes peeled for that. And that's awesome. I'll be praying for it. It sounds almost kind of reminiscent of Crib Camp. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Yeah.
no, I love when I saw it. I was like, man, I love the documentary, and I've been in pursuits of trying to interview Judy, and we corresponded a couple of times. It's so tough to get her because she's very busy. Yeah. So maybe if she sees this, Judy, I'm still interested. So I've a lot of my questions you've answered. Is there anything that you would like to tell the listeners who will be looking at the video?
Sure. And this is, I guess, travel related, just because that's kind of what my professional world centers on. But the number one obstacle that I find for wheelchair users, people with disabilities, to travel is fear. And there's so many things to be afraid of: fear of getting your wheelchair damaged, fear of arriving at your destination and something that was supposed to be accessible is not, fear of something going wrong. There's so many fears. And people tell me all the time, oh, you're so brave, you travel by yourself. I go, no, I'm not brave. I'm terrified every time I leave the house. The only difference is that I have experience and I know how to be flexible, and I kind of know how to work with whatever obstacles are placed in front of me, just because I've done it so many times. But every time I leave the house, I'm terrified. I hate flying. I used to, before COVID, I flew 2 or 3 times a month, and I still hate it, even no matter how many times I do it, because I'm just a nervous flyer. But I do it anyway, because I know the reward that's at the other end of the entire journey and all the challenges and difficulties I have to go with. So getting over that fear is difficult, and I understand that. But you can arm yourself with knowledge in doing the research to find out what you can do. So instead of focusing on, on what you can't do because of a physical limitation, focus on what you can do and how you can work around those things. And that, little by little, it helps you get over those fears of travel by just taking baby steps to get out there, whether it's riding your local bus or a local train, staying at a hotel locally, because if things don't work out, you can just drive back home, and then just kind of building up. So yeah, work to get over those fears, and there's a whole world that's waiting for you.
Yeah. And I just want to add on to what you just said, because again, just on my first time flying, my wife and I had a lot of questions of what steps to take. And prior to going on the trip, we had like months, at least, I know we looked at least about 2 months and a half of protocol, just what we could do, what could I take on the airplane, what I could not take up there. And then now I remember, luckily, I was going to rent a vehicle. I had these portable ramps that I've been using, and I was going to use those. I was going to rent a vehicle, but something happened with that. So I said, well, let me find a handicapped van to rent. And I got lucky. There was a place in Dover that would actually deliver my van to the airport, to Tampa.
Okay.
But I always say the stories are not good unless there's some kind of disaster that happens. So on the way at the airport in Raleigh, on my way to come to Tampa, I get a text message saying that they needed some more information for identification. My wife was the primary driver, and I'm on my phone. I'm trying to do this while I'm in the line trying to check into the airport, because we don't want to be late for the plane. And
yeah,
I sent it to him, but once I got in the sky, I was like, I don't know what happened, because you got to put it on airplane mode. But when we got down, I saw a message saying that they were going to have to cancel my order because they didn't have something. And I'm like, oh no. I don't think I'm at the airport in Tampa with my 5-year-old and my wife. And
Oh
it's
my
like
God.
8 o'clock at night. But luckily, I guess they must have got it right because it was an old message. And I called. When I called, they told me that the van was in the parking lot, and they told me the lot number, and I got there. But you know, and everything was fine for as that. Used it the whole 8 days we were there, and then we got back to the airport. That was another thing. I had to get patted down because I had a temporary ID. It was still good. I got there with it, but going back home, it was something. But anyway, long story short, everything worked out, and I was able to get back home to North Carolina. But if the point, like you just said, doing the research, I would have never known about the service of. It was called I think it's Wheelers, we have handicap van service.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, but they were a true help for
Good.
those who need to go to close to Dover, Florida. And like I said, they went from Dover to Tampa, so that was good. Yeah, so
Good.
uh, I just wanted to add that because you made an excellent point about just preparing ahead of time takes a lot of the jitters away if you kind of prepare ahead of time. Yeah. Well, I truly appreciate you talking with us, and I would love to maybe later on down the road follow up with you, especially on the documentary and just some of your many more advocacy endeavors that you'll be doing. And so you always will have a platform here to interview with us anytime you need to.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, you're so welcome. So before we wrap it up, just to reiterate, for our listeners, can you just tell them where they can reach you if they have any questions to ask you?
Sure. Again, you can find me on my blog at Spin the Globe, and I have a contact form there at spintheglobe.net. You can find me on social media on Facebook under Spin the Globe, and I think the handle or whatever for Facebook is let's see, Spin the Globe on Wheels for Facebook. And then you can find me on Instagram. I'm very active on Instagram at Sylvia_Longmire. So SYLVIA_LONGMIRE.
Okay. All right. You hear it, everyone. So please, if you go to those platforms, comment, like, subscribe, support her. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. And as always, please, when you see this video for us, whichever platform you may see it on, do the same. Subscribe, like, and comment. And we will see you all the next interview. Thank you so much, Sylvia.
Thank you.